Yep.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for the delay, but technical difficulties with our sound system has caused us to run a little bit late. It's 6:10. We're in the lower theater of the town hall. There's a Zoom connection and a phone you can call in on. These items can be found on the website, rockbf.org. That being said, I'd like to call this meeting to order. First order of business is to approve the minutes of September 19th, 2021. They are in your packet.
So moved.
Here, a second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of September 19th, 2023. Any deletions, corrections, additions, omissions?
Peter, the only thing I noticed is under other business, the Oak Hill Cemetery Chapel says that this is applying for Vermont Preservation Grant. I believe we're actually not applying this year for the preservation grant for that.
I think they weren't gonna have enough time to do it,
Oh, maybe you ran past the deadline then? Okay.
because I think they're gonna
I
try.
know a couple of weeks ago, Walter nailed me and said that they were doing it.
Yeah, we were thinking about trying, but they decided not to do that.
They've got to, I think, work more on the phase 2 portions of the meeting house, Peter, so I don't think they're gonna have time to get that
Yeah,
done.
fashion.
I've got an update on that issue when it's appropriate to on that building. Now, later.
We're talking about that right now. So-
Okay, so Jones Roofing, there had been talk of an agreement where we, the town, would provide materials, they would provide labor. I made 2 calls to them, I haven't a response yet. If anyone else has contacts with them, I would appreciate knowing about it.
Let me see if I can contact them. I haven't seen them around anywhere, so they must be, maybe they're out of town, which is why you're not getting any answer response. I know they're busier than one on paper hanging, trying to get them to answer phone calls is beyond.
Yeah, I think it would be ironic if we're hosting the historic preservation meeting and our buildings on our registered buildings is water's gushing into it with every rainstorm, so hopefully we can get some attention on this.
It's not a great look.
No, not a great look.
Let me see if I can track them down this week. That being said, the only other suggestion I had is, can we improve the font a little bit on this? It's kind of pretty small. My eyes are not as young as they used to be.
No, I'm the one
I
that
can
was.
see the good-looking people in this room, but I can't,
Yes,
So if
yes.
we can just up the font a little, that would be appreciated.
Yeah.
All those in favor to approve the minutes would say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and/or pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting. I have none.
No.
Scott?
Nothing.
No. Board? None? Boy, we're going right along. Good. So like, public comment on items not on the agenda, 3 minutes per person. Hearing none, we can move right along to the manager's report.
So wanted to make sure I put on there, just for everybody's attention, the bridge schedule. I know we talked about this briefly at the tri-board meetings, but we are in a delay pattern at the moment with our depot bridge. So we've pushed this out probably another 12 to 18 months for the first phase of the construction, which would be the Canal Street utility relocation. The concern is you don't want to miss the 25, 26, and 27 seasons for construction, because the grant that we received for the full 100% payment of all of the construction costs ends in 28. So we have to make sure that from this point forward, that hopefully that'll stay somewhat on schedule. It seems that the state has really had a hard time, all of the agencies, keeping up with their workloads after the floods, and so everything that we've been talking to them about has received a 6 or 9 month or longer delay based on flood response and flood projects and flood related activities. So at the moment, we're not in any particular danger of losing that. It does sort of put some additional pressure on to finalize. It also gives us more time to try to coordinate with Green Mountain, not Green Mountain, with the hydro folks. And so we've had some very preliminary conversations with them. and hopeful that we'll be able to get something, at least the ability to try to coordinate, because they certainly have work to do and they have other dam-related activities that they would like to do that also might require some of the same concerns that we have about not being able to provide power on demand if the grid is overloaded. So I'm hoping that if we can coordinate some of that, it'll take some of our risk away, which is a big concern for us, obviously.
Scott, can you tell us the ballpark number of what the difference is between the 80-20 match and the 100% match? How many thousands of dollars would it cost the town if we lost that 20%?
Well, it was a full 20%, and again, we don't have bids, so we're just gonna take it on their current estimate, but I think right now, the replacement cost of that bridge is roughly 12 to 14 million, somewhere in that neighborhood, so 20% of that number. So you're looking at, $300,000 or $400,000 roughly, that would be our share.
Yeah, and the V-Trans people are aware that we stand to lose that if it doesn't come through.
It's federal money, and they certainly understand the parameters of the federal money, so. It's a little bit of a challenge, Rick. I mean, they administer the funds, and we're at their mercy, and we do the best we can, so.
Yeah.
But it is a little bit of a concern. We've lost our little window. The other bridge project that we had also talked about is the delay on the Vilas. So I guess that'll be somewhat good news because they pushed the construction out on that a little bit, so that potentially you would be starting construction on the Vilas right around 28, 29. So you'd basically be finished with the construction on Depot and the area of Canal Street, and then jump right over and be doing major construction at the other end there at the Vilas. And then the Bridge Street Bridge, which still has not been given any kind of funding. We're hopeful, in talking with Wyndham Regional, that they will be able to at least put us back on their bridge priority project list. We were placed on it in 23, they didn't fund the projects in 23, they ran out of money. So my understanding is they're hopeful to have another priority list for 2025 construction. So we'll certainly try to put our name in the hat for that as well. And you can tell based on just how this is going to go that there's going to be a lot of years of pretty high intensity disruption for that area to get through these bridge projects. So we're going to really need some patience and some cooperation and hopefully outreach. Betsy's been working with DOT on some stuff about trying to maintain communications with the business community and blogging and putting together some information online. So we'll continue to support that effort, which has, I think, been helpful. But these things are, these projects are somewhat out of our control, but they certainly have impacts on our community, our traffic patterns, our businesses, how people, use the downtown. So we'll make sure that we try to keep as much of that disruption to a minimum. So.
Well, one of the good things is the bridge, Depot Street Bridge should be finished before construction starts on Bridge Street Bridge. So Bridge Street Bridge can be completely closed during construction rather than trying to have a temporary bridge in place or something like that. So that in itself is a, savings on cost and complexity.
That's going to be a tough project, the Bridge Street Bridge, no matter how we do it.
Well, yes, but at least if the other bridge is in place first,
right,
then we have full access to the island, and that can be just completely closed if necessary.
That's true. Yep.
And we're probably still going to have all the same issues with hydro when they go to work on the Bridge Street Bridge.
Yeah, that one is, like I said, just because of its location and just the smaller area to work in and how close it is, it's going to be a difficult one for sure. So we'll definitely be doing some work with them over the next few years to try to figure some of these things out. So.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move into the agenda and see Laura Sebelius is over there, calmly waiting for her chance. Well, you're up, Laura, at BDCC presentation and funding request.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Shall I stay here? Where do you like people these
I need
days?
some to the chair, just so the owls can pick up.
Closer to
here.
the microphone, sometimes it does help, it'll pick you up.
Further away, so don't, yeah. We can send a packet of information that provided in our packet, hopefully, if we read it,
Okay,
or skim through it anyway.
so this is our annual visit time to municipalities throughout the region. And we come and talk about what we did with the funding that the voters in your towns appropriated last year. We've been doing that for 13 years? 13 years. And I will note, Bellows Falls, Brattleboro, Dover, and Wilmington were the first towns in to help with municipal funding, to help move the workforce development issue along. We have gotten a lot of traction and built programs that are continuing to grow and become more and more effective. We're seeing better results. And also you have led the way towards other communities in the region joining. And so here's our annual thank you as well. We'll just kind of highlight some of the programs that have been built with these public funds that have come in that are less restricted than some of the grant funds and other funds that come in and allow us to leverage these funds towards more effective workforce development programs and other programs. I will say this year, we did participate in flood recovery efforts specifically for businesses, largely in the Weston and Londonderry area. A bit in Jamaica, we're continuing to monitor those situations. Businesses, after natural disaster, often really the only options that are available to them are debt or insurance, and not FEMA or federal programs. So we've been trying to help connect resources to those businesses. This year, we will be doing our update to the 5-year Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Plan. That's a federally prescribed process for our region, which now is Southern Vermont, Wyndham and Bennington counties in the Southern Vermont zone, to look at our assets, have a discussion amongst ourselves, public discussion about what we're trying to achieve here with our assets, set some goals, and develop strategies to try and move those assets. This will be the third SEDS that has been developed in this region. It'll be 15 years, oh my goodness. Since I've been here that we are working on this. We typically will hold regional meetings, both larger public meetings and focus group meetings, and you all have been very generous in the past in allowing us to host meetings here to make sure that we're getting folks from around the region. So that will be coming up, and we look forward to participation and working with you all. We have our Business Technical Assistance and Lending Program. BDCC can support businesses at all stages, and we continue to try and evolve and find the right mix of products and technical support for the businesses in our region through those programs. The Pipelines and Pathways program, that is a program that we work with all of the high schools, including Bellows Falls High School, and it connects the students in the Wyndham County high schools with career awareness and preparation. So our kids cannot choose careers here if they're not aware of them. And so we want them to be aware of them and also to have a sense of what it takes to be qualified to work those careers. So then they can choose them and they'll be prepared if they would like. Those, really exciting. That is one of our key workforce programs for younger kids. And we just had a big announcement at our annual meeting. Several of our workforce programs are kind of going to the next step with the Northern Borders region has come forward. We'll be supporting a program sort of like this Pipelines and Pathways for our kids, for really the larger community, and for folks who are underemployed, for new Americans, for folks looking to change careers, kind of a one-stop, here's how you can become qualified to do this job in our region, if you would like. Welcoming communities, that is welcoming new Americans here into the region. I think you all are aware of that and have seen some of that happen here in Bellows Falls, previously with CAST and others. The Southern Vermont Young Professionals, is a group that is just trying to make sure that our young folks that are here are connected. It's a rural area, trying to make sure they have social and professional networks. The Community Facilities Technical Assistance Program, that helps qualified projects and applicants. It provides them with technical assistance if they're looking for USDA funds. And then the Southern Vermont Economy Project, which is one of my favorite projects, it really looks at what are the common issues and challenges or opportunities that are facing our communities and or our larger employers, and can we provide tools for these common issues or challenges, like a webinar for, here's how you apply for this type of grant, or have you, everyone's talking about housing, but have you seen what they're doing in Bellows Falls? Let us have you hear from the folks that are doing incremental development, those types of things. So it really seeks to learn from folks that are doing well and share that knowledge throughout the region and hopefully improve things for everyone. So that's a little bit about the programs that we've put together that we've been working on the past year. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I think typically you all, and Scott or Gary, I'm sure will correct me if I'm wrong, I think typically you include this in your budget.
We do.
Yeah, and we send somebody to speak at town meeting. We're happy to talk to folks about the work that's going on. As a small rural community in Vermont, it's really important that we have as many folks understanding and pitching in and sharing ideas and what their thoughts are as possible. So we're happy to come and talk to folks as often as we can.
Do you do any legislative advocacy? I mean, I know aren't you a legislator from Dover?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but does SEBEDS do any, like, for example, Act 250, many people view that needs to be reformed because it's getting in the way of downtown developments, for example. Do you do anything in that regard?
So SEBEDS is the Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategies Group, and that is a group that is intentionally regional, comes together to think about what are the big issues our region is facing and how can we develop strategies. They really shepherd the SEDS process.
Mm-hmm.
They are staffed. They have no staff. They are staffed by BDCC, Adam Grenold, who you probably all know, he's the executive director there. And so legislative advocacy at the BDCC would come through Adam and the BDCC board.
Are there any particular issues that you're working on now in that regard?
That BDCC is working on?
Yeah.
I would have to have Adam speak to that. I'm happy when we're done doing this presentation to change my hat and answer any questions you guys can ask me about legislation, but I don't want to speak to what the BDCC is doing legislatively.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But Adam would be very happy to talk to you about it if you'd like me to have him follow on.
I'm personally interested in it
Okay.
from the town.
Great.
Anyone else have any questions?
I could just say from our own personal, and Gary and I both lean on BDCC. Obviously, they're a landlord on some of our projects. They've been very beneficial to helping us unlock all sorts of grant opportunities because they have a lot of expertise. And Gary and Betsy do a great job, but there's only 4 hands that can write grants, even though they're ambidextrous. So they've been great helping us with getting applications, getting into the mix, helping advocate, and to sort of answer some of Rick's questions. They're very helpful in that arena for us because we're a small voice in a very large pool, and sometimes BDCC helps to amplify our voice and get us sort of the things that, a higher level of attention that we can get on our own. Working with Chroma and all sorts of stormwater issues out near our industrial park, they were very helpful working with us cooperatively to get USDA EWP money. The project turned out to be much larger than anybody had anticipated. BDCC was very helpful getting us the second phase of funding to help with that project. We're looking at other stormwater improvements now that are all related to these new stormwater events that we're having and creating difficulties, and so BDCC has been helpful with us trying to get more funding as we try to not just grow but maintain our existing infrastructure, as these climate changes are impacting basically the places where we work and the places where we drive and the places, how we're gonna be able to function going forward. So that relationship's been very helpful to us on a lot of those issues, so it's money well invested.
Okay, I guess you're all set. I guess nobody else has any questions, so I guess we covered the points. And like I say, we had to read material anyway, so
Great.
appreciate you coming in.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, item number 2 is request for a highway permit for GMP. I believe there's a gentleman sitting up there on the, from the highway.
Frank was the engineer that's been working on this project, so I think this is a continuation of the work. This is the third phase of the work that has been ongoing for improving the reliability of that phase of the grid. The Green Mountain Power has been updating, so if you have any questions about any of this is, I believe, the last section, is that right?
That's right.
Okay, so
Correct.
Franklin, this is the last section that we'll be working on, at least for this project.
And this carries it to the Grafton town line, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Up to Cambridgeport and the town line.
Can't hear him.
Yeah, it goes all the way to the Grafton town line and Cambridgeport and the town line. Yeah, this is not projecting the lines of our. So basically, it's our typical request for a permit,
Yeah, it's Parker Hill Road out there.
and then we do ask for signatures so we can record these.
So do you have a copy there for signature?
Yeah, I have this one for signature.
We'll need a motion to approve the notification of pole and wire locations for GMP.
So moved.
Is there a second? Made and seconded. Is there any further discussion, questions?
What will be the timeframe of the project?
This particular phase, Franklin?
Yeah, well, this phase, we're currently working on phase 2 right now. So as soon as the pole siting is complete on phase 2, up to the intersection of Pleasant Valley and Quarry Hill, we'll start phase 3. With that said, it should be the first part of November
Okay.
that the pole work will be initiated.
What is that?
Late fall, beginning of November, we were talking to them about some storage areas to store some of the materials out near Saxon's River Recreation. I think they're going to be in touch with Amy and our highway guys just to make sure if we get an early snow, we can work around it while they're working on the poles. But otherwise, I think everything's pretty much ready to go.
Just FYI, the New York Times had an article on Green Mountain Power yesterday or today about their battery project, but they also talked about the infrastructure.
Yeah, this is a lot of the storm hardening, and I think trying to make their basic circuit, their distribution and transmission systems more storm resistant. So hopefully this will be, we'll see less outages because of these types of improvements.
Okay.
We haven't voted?
Any questions?
Is a vote needed? We second up? We don't need a vote?
Yeah, we will go.
Okay.
Approve it. I already have some motion.
Yeah.
And Sue seconded, so. If there's no further questions, all those in favor of approving the notification pole and wire locations as presented, would say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Come around for signatures.
Thank you.
Okay, all good, thanks.
Thanks.
Get it signed out that way. Give you a second, and we'll put you on the docket next. Is it Scotland, isn't it? All right, item number 4 is a request to approve item number 3. Request to fund the mailing for town meeting participation survey. Rick, I guess you got the lead on this one, since it's your baby.
Okay, so, as you can tell from the discussion at the tri-board meeting, this topic is one that's important and interests a lot of people. The sort of our iconic form of government here, the town meeting, is something that is precious. It's been happening in this town since, what, 1750 something or other, 250 years plus. So the idea of a survey is one that you heard discussed last time. And unfortunately, my partner in this project, Bonnie North, suffered a stroke. And I just got an email from her saying she got home last night and proving a long way to go. But I don't feel comfortable moving forward by myself on this. It's a really complicated project, and without some staff help, either from volunteers or from town, whether there's anyone on the town staff that has space in their lives to help out with such a project, is an open question. So I would request that we delay discussion of this issue to a future meeting.
That's fine, but can we send a little information here?
Sure.
I spent a little time with Kathleen upstairs, getting some voting numbers from 2019 to current. 2019, we had 71 people attend the town meeting and 499 people voted. 2020, this is your time of COVID, the infamous COVID situation. 147 people voted, showed up at town meeting, and 1,163 voted. But the caveat there was it was a primary election in March and a regular election, presidential election in November. So that's why there was a big uptick.
Okay.
2021 is the other section of COVID. 57 people showed up at town meeting. Explanation, because we voted Australian. Also in 2020, we are Australian forced from the government. The governor forced everybody to vote because of COVID issues. We had 528 people vote that year. 2022, we had 26 people at town meeting, 15 on Zoom, 477 people voted. Last year, we had 105 people at town meeting, 22 were on Zoom, and 392 people voted. This is a little history.
And what's the total registered voters? Is something like
3,600, I think,
Yeah.
is what Kathleen told me.
The other thing I had some concerns with is, last year at our town meeting, we had the 105 people there. The first 2 items were pretty much decided because it was very heavily voted in favor to stick with the town meeting, but you're asking people about it again. And Australian ballot went down the tubes, both at the village meeting and town meeting. Nobody wants to do Australian ballot. I don't know if you're gonna continue to put those on the thing and on this survey. I think the point of this survey is to find out why people don't show up for town meeting.
Yeah, and see if they're open to other approaches, different days, different formats, that sense.
Well, you have those on under item 3.
Yep.
I know Jig's made a comment about some of your stuff on this thing here. But I don't know how anybody else feels, but $1,600 is a lot of money to send out to find out a survey and probably only get 300 or 400 people responding. That's just my opinion. So I don't know how you want to see that, just putting my 2 cents into that operation.
So there's concern that 170 people are making a decision for 3,600 voters, right? Is that what it comes down to? Because the 2 points of view are, when we gather in person, we discuss things and we can have ideas and we can have disagreement and reach some kind of consensus. With the Australian ballot, that interchange of ideas and opinions doesn't take place.
Correct.
So that's the tension that I feel. Does anyone else? That's that? What
The
seems
thing
like
with the Australian ballot is that if you have town meeting, nobody shows up, well, we can see the result. We've had anywhere from 47 to 26 to 147 people show up.
Right.
But you have those many educated voters, when other people that show up to vote Australian, they're not even educated on the items that are going on in town meeting. They're just there to put a check mark on a piece of paper. They don't know what they're voting for.
Right.
Which is why everybody would rather discuss the issues at town meeting and vote on stuff. The other thing is that Australian ballot can cost you more money, because if you're defeated at Australian ballot, then you go through the whole process again in another 45 days. And you gotta pay for all the ballots, all the ballot clerks, et cetera, it's just more expense. At town meeting, you can change the budget without defeating
Right.
a discussion.
Yep.
You want to say, the select board to take $100,000 out of the budget, you can't tell them where, but you can at least reduce the budget,
Right.
if you want to at that point. And if everybody voted, then fine. The only surplus the only plus I see to this town meeting is that because there's a lack of attendance, is that they must think we're doing a good job, because nobody's come to oppose anything. So, and as I say, unless there's a contentious issue on the budget, on the ballot, you're not gonna get any more than what normally shows up, 500-600 people at the most. I mean, I think at the village meeting, only had 136. So,
I'd love a sense of the board. Peter, those are good points. Whether my colleagues select board members see a point for large ones.
Well, I think the point of the survey is to figure out how we can encourage more people to come to the in-person town meeting. Whether this is going to be successful or not, it's hard to say.
Is there any way, well, no, that won't work, but I mean, it would cut some of the expense is if the survey went in with one of the next tax bills. I mean, not all taxpayers are voters. I mean, not all voters are taxpayers, obviously.
that's the problem.
But it would, is there any way, I don't know with the database, is there any way to say, okay, now we've got that, however many thousands or hundreds sent out to the tax bill, we only have to pay for this many who are not taxpayers. I don't know if you can divide the database in that way.
Yeah, I met with Kathleen about this, as you did, Peter, and it's pretty tricky because the addresses we have for voters don't really have zip codes for it. All it says is Rockingham, Bellows Falls, or Saxon's River. So you've got a big job for someone who's going through those addresses and finding out if we can nail to them. The thought we had was that we would send a letter that would say there'd be a paper version and there'd be an electronic version. So there'd be a paper version you could fill out, come into town hall, go to the bookstore, pick up a paper version. Or we hope most people would go online with the Survey Monkey.
The Survey Monkey might work in the fact that as long as you put down town residents on there, so you know that it's a Rockingham person that's filling out the survey. But if you get one that's not signed off who it is, you can disregard that vote.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Right, and
It's a hell of a lot cheaper, like it's $99 to do the Survey Monkey versus $1,600
exactly.
on the other, so.
And it's a non-binding thing, so it's not.
Well, I realize that, but I
So,
mean.
we were just trying to get some data to move forward, but,
All right, so you want to table this and bring it back at
unless, Scott, do you feel that town staff could help us with this, or do you feel that you're already?
Well, we're gonna start jumping into budget, so
Right.
we're sort of at that juncture where it gets a little bit challenging.
It seems like this could be quite time consuming.
I think if you get
Yeah.
into it,
All right, so,
yeah.
so Bonnie obviously, she just got back from the hospital, so I haven't had a chance to talk with her about it, but my sense is that we probably, from what I've heard, is the best to hold this off. Is that the sense of the?
What do you think if you have a public meeting and see how many people show up to that to discuss and ask the same questions?
Whether you can get these people out of their houses is the next question, you know, for anything.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just,
When you can't get them to come to town meeting.
well,
I think the Survey Monkey is the way to go. The issue is
Right.
how do you let people know about it? And
Right.
people who are not on a computer, to
Yeah.
get, where they can know they can go and fill it out or pick up a paper copy. And so that's
How
the issue.
How about we do it on SurveyMonkey, and we do drop a notice into the next tax bill saying that this is happening. It's not gonna get out to everybody, but it's gonna get out to current people. But the more people you get it out to, the more that people are gonna tell somebody else. You know, it's like you can only reach so many people on social media. You can only reach so many people in newspaper. But then if you also put a notice in the tax bill, you're reaching that many more people. So that is, between the three, that's pretty deadly.
You're not gonna get another tax bill until next year, so, in May, so that's after this next meeting coming up. So we want to
Yeah,
get
that's true.
That's
the
true.
input before then, tax bills are
That's true.
probably the way to go.
And any paper ones filled out, some will have to sit down and input every one of the paper responses, because SurveyMonkey will only,
Do what they put on.
Exactly.
Online.
Yeah, no, that is
So
true.
it's a tricky, I mean, I've given a lot of thought, and my feeling right now is just to put on hold until we can talk to Bonnie, and is that okay with you?
I think so, but just for where this money would come from, I would assume it would come out of the select board's pocket of money for projects, events, whatever. I mean, I don't know how much, I mean, normally it's for us to go to meetings and such, but I don't know how much we spend on that pocket of money.
Dude, yeah, I don't know.
But I mean, I would that is one area where the money, either the 99 or the 1,000 could come out of.
Right, we have some professional services, we can usually
Yeah.
scrape up the money.
Okay, so there's room in the budget if, but
Right.
we don't want to spend money.
Select board
Without-
expenses is a 2,000
Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine.
budget.
The postcard would be $1,000, and the postage would be probably 400.
Yeah, that's a significant amount of money.
I feel like we're just getting a little bit too close on the timing for
Yeah.
the postcard mailing anyways, because that's just a lot of work. You know,
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, we won't be able to make a change for this next coming up
No,
town meeting anyhow. We
All
have,
right, so why don't we table it and we'll bring it back, and we decide between now and then to have a public meeting and see who we can shake out the trees and.
All right.
meanwhile, people can email us if they want, provide us their information,
Yeah.
of what their opinions.
We could do a press release that solicit information. I'd be glad to collect, if you want to email me, I'd be glad to save those responses and share them. It's up to you guys.
I think Peter's numbers are impressive and important, and make sure people see the history.
Yeah,
Yes, that's very
very-
helpful.
That's a
Thank you.
very telling group of numbers, in a lot of ways, yeah.
And this is a problem having all over the state, it's not just us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not
no
just that.
indictment, right,
I mean,
it's just a.
You know, the food situation in Westminster, as everybody said, but, you know, they're lucky because they do it at the high school where they have a cafeteria.
Right.
You're not gonna have 500 people show up down here to eat food.
No.
I don't want to think, and where else are you gonna have it? Okay, so you got the middle school, the central school, but you got a parking issue going on there. Where are you gonna park? They didn't like it when we got voting down there before, that's why I could move to the temple.
Right.
So, that's it,
Can I just ask a question? Do you have the questions all
yeah.
Yeah,
chosen?
they were presented at the tri-board meeting.
Okay.
Bonnie and I
Oh, I missed that.
had worked on it and came up with a SurveyMonkey approach where people could express opinions about like a different day would work. If we provide childcare, we gave them reasons to say, if we did this, would you come? And
So I
then
just-
also, why didn't you come?
I just wonder, can we do the SurveyMonkey without Bonnie, or was she the one
We
that
can,
was gonna set that up?
Yeah,
Bonnie's much better at SurveyMonkey than I am. That's the one reason I want to talk to her to see if but I could probably figure it out, but I might need a little bit of help from
Okay,
somebody. Do you do SurveyMonkey?
no.
It's not.
because the other thing, you know, with SurveyMonkey, that, you know, you're gonna reach people that have computers. Those that don't have computers,
Exactly.
you're not gonna reach them.
That's
So,
That's a real
that's
problem.
another problem, so it's not as simple as just throw it out there.
No, it's
And you're right, it's gonna be time consuming and
a lot of work.
whatever. Okay, let's move along to request approve, item 4, request to approve TA 23 scoping study, municipal project management services. There's a memo and things in your packet.
So basically what this does is authorize us to start working on our next transportation alternatives scoping project, which we had applied for and discussed previously looking at the trail extensions and some of our riverfront connections. Wyndham Regional would be the entity that we would be basically contracting with. And the reason that I wanted to put it on here, just to make sure the board was aware, there's a scope of services in here, as well as the fact that we do have a $5,000 portion that we will be responsible for outside of the other costs that are covered by the grant.
Scott, this scoping will include the consideration of a roadway, not just a path coming from the Liberty Mill down to the water treatment plant, true?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a big piece, and that's sort of a new wrinkle. People are not aware of that.
It had been looked at in the past. We do have some very, very preliminary engineering work that looked at it from Paper Mill Road down to the fence line of the, they looked at it as an alternative to potentially offer a second means of egress to the sewage treatment plant. And I think those plans are 20+ years old now, but they're still at least a baseline for them to start working or looking at, so.
Okay, and the Walk Bike Committee would love to be involved with this scoping. We've given a lot of thought to this.
They'll do it like they did, I think, the one that we're working on with Rockingham and School Street intersection, where they'll do a steering committee, they'll have public meetings. It'll be a very publicly involved process. So, for sure, we'll definitely want to make sure that we have representation.
So do you need a motion to?
We will need a motion to approve the Rockingham TAP TA 23 scoping study municipal project management services with a funding of $5,000.
I so move.
Second. Second?
Yeah, second.
Okay, that's all. Okay, any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the TAP 23 scoping study would say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Authorize the manager to sign. You got a copy right there, Scott?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Item 5 is the request to approve Rockingham TAP TA 23 municipal project manager letter of support. A little different wording there.
yeah, so what this does is this really goes back to V-Trans, who is our holding the funds for the grant, and saying that we are working through this agreement, but we've also identified a person, Colin Bratton, and I think most of you know Colin, he's been at various meetings. He's well versed in these grant processes and is really a big advocate for these types of TA programs, and that he would be our primary person, sort of the point person to work this grant through.
And would we have a contract with him, or does the
He would be contracted through Wyndham Regional, so that's why this agreement will, but he's the primary point of contact, which is why we were sending this to V-Trans. And so they wanted something from our board, just acknowledging that we would like to support that.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the letter of support for the TAP TA 23 project.
So
And
moved.
authorize the chair to sign such.
So moved to, we need to specify Colin Bratton or just the,
It's in the letter, so that's great.
all right.
Yep.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the TAP 23 municipal project manager letter of support. With the select chair and select board signing, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
I'm sorry, can I ask who seconded that?
I think,
Okay.
who seconded Elijah?
Oh, I thought you seconded.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay. So we don't have to amend the minutes
Okay,
next.
somebody step up, take the blame for that one. All right, let's move right down to the review of the pavement management plan update. There's a voluminous packet in you.
This is not a complete document, but it was at least updated to the point where I at least want to have a preliminary conversation with the board about some of the findings and have an opportunity to get some feedback. The final report, which I'm hoping to have later on as we start budget, later on into November, early December, we'll start to look at breakdowns of various project locations. So I think Elijah had stopped in today, and I'm sure others probably have the same questions as to what is the list. But before we jump into what is the list, there's a couple of just sort of pieces of information that I wanted to go over with that I thought was significant. So you look at the June 2018 sort of summary sheet, so it shows our total miles of paved roads, and it shows which ones are in various conditions, which ones require major reconstruction, which ones require no maintenance. So at that point in time, when we had just started that first 5-year window, we roughly had 37% of our basic roads, of our paved roads needed no maintenance. If you look at it now, that percentage has jumped up to, as of the October 23 evaluation, up to 62%. So the 5 years of that work plan that the board stuck to, and again, also made a commitment to pay for that money with current tax revenues and not going to bond, so that you kept some of your bond capacity freed up. It was a significant investment, but I think it's paid off. As you can see, in every category, we've made improvements in terms of the conditions of the road, the amounts of road that need to be rehabilitated or reconstructed. In both cases has dropped significantly. So you've seen almost a 50% improvement across the board in all the various condition types of our roads. So I think that's a good indicator that effort over the last 5 years did pay some dividends. The challenge that we have going forward is the price of paving, because that's so directly linked to the price of fuel, and I think we're all nervous about what's going to happen with fuel prices over the next, who knows how long. We continue to have these major issues with oil production and wars in the Middle East and all sorts of other chaos. All of that gets reflected in the cost of oil, and that obviously goes right to the bottom line of the cost per ton of asphalt. So the next phase of this report will look at what our average, we looked at our average price over the last 5 years, and also then did some analysis, been working with the engineers on what we would use as some baselines to project the next 5 years worth of potential projects, and that's why we didn't have all that information available for you for this meeting. We're still working on how those different models about how that might work, so that we can give you what we hope to be more accurate information on that 5-year window. So that will be coming to you. The other couple of big pieces of this, again, we've averaged roughly $800,000 a year in taxpayer expenditures on an annualized basis. We're going to have to probably increase that bottom line number if we want to maintain this level of improvement. $95 a ton is roughly what we've been looking at as we go forward. There is the same basic prices, increase on chip sealing and milling and paving. They all march in lockstep. So when we see these increases, it's not just the asphalt cost. It's all those other pieces that go into the reconstruction as well, or the roads that we just want to do basic, basic work on the surface of the road. But with all that being said, the other piece that we're going to have to look at, in 2025, we are eligible, or again, if the cycle continues with the state, and they've been pretty consistent, for another pavement grant, which we potentially could put forward to look at paving a section of 121. And I would highlight that specifically because I talked to Westminster and their highway foreman. They're looking to pave their portion of the 121 in 2025. So it would make sense, and we've talked very preliminarily about if they're going to do a section and they know what their potential estimated quantities would be, if we then did it in conjunction, bid in conjunction and did our section, we could get better pricing. We would have to pay the contractor for mobilization and demobilization. Obviously, the contractor is going to give you a better bid price if he can do a longer stretch of construction. He actually gets some benefit and some cost, as well as hopefully, if there's ever an opportunity to look at, are there areas where we can make improvements in the right of way? Because we're going to have to do some reconstruction. Ours is just not going to be paving. We're going to have to look at some road reconstruction. It's an opportunity to look at all of that in a fairly significant section of roadway and be able to maybe make some adjustments. If we could look at shared use lanes or bike lanes or whatever else we might be able to look at, that's the window, so that we wouldn't have our piece and then we've done some work and it's not connected to their piece. And then we have another piece of our piece that heads back down 121 towards the village. So really, this is an opportunity, I think, to really coordinate that and make it financially feasible if we can get the $200,000 pavement grant on top of it, so that we could potentially have $1 million worth of funds if that section would be in our 25 budget. 2024, just as another priority project, we've been meeting with the Central Elementary School, and we've been meeting on the Rockingham School Street discussions, or Atkinson and School Street rather. But other considerations there is we want to fix Church Place, the road conditions there. And if we do it, we have to do a significant amount of sidewalk work, kind of like we did on Center this year, as well as try to continue some of the sidewalks that go along the other section of School Street so that they're all 5 foot 8 in widths, as well as do some ADA compliant ramp work. If you've ever stood at that intersection, there's a host of problems that need to be rectified there. Some the school would be responsible for, some we would be responsible for, and we're hoping that we could apply, even though it's premature, but apply for some TA implementation funds to help us with that portion of the study area, knowing that we're going to get other recommendations for the larger area that's going to come through the whole TA grant that we're currently working through now. But that would give us a window to do all that work potentially next summer as a 2024 project as part of our paving and our sidewalk work, that we could coordinate all of that together with the school work. They have to do some work. They have some drainage that needs improving there. They have some their parking area that needs to be redone there. And we would try to redo some of the curbs there to give us a better opportunity for the way they need a ramp in front of the school. The ramp that they have for the handicap doesn't go to the parking spot, it goes the other direction. So the handicap parking is in a space that doesn't have a handicap ramp, and a lot of it is not really consistent. So potentially that could be a 2024 project. We would maybe hope that maybe we could get some additional funds to help us with some of the other portions of that might be eligible under the TA grant process. The reason why I'm jumping the gun on all of that is because those grants are due in December. So we're having very preliminary outreach with some of the folks in the agency to say, can we do this, knowing that we're going to do multiple phases of this? We can't do it all at once. And would we be eligible if we were able to just put this piece together, understanding that we're going to be working on the wider project as we go forward? And hopefully they'll think that that makes sense and be able to help us with some additional funds. So in combination, that might make a lot of sense, and then jump right into the next, like we talked about on 121 for 25, and then the years as we go forward, we would then look at the other priority streets, which are listed on the map, and again, with the colors, I'm hoping that it made some sense to you as you looked at some of the maps, with the prioritization as to what needs rehabilitation, what's just routine, and what needs reconstruction. So you can see, based on what the town has, based on what the village has, and the Saxons River folks have asked if we have, at one of our tri-board meetings, if we can bring them into the conversation and talk about where things stand in Saxons River, and certainly we can bring them into that conversation as well. We're hoping to have all of that done by that November 28th tri-board meeting. So we've sort of targeted that as a goal, and I'm hopeful that we can get there. But I wanted you to see all this information first, to get a sense of it, to see if there's other things that you would like us to try to update or help you to make some of these decisions. And I didn't want the first time you heard about this to be in the middle of a budget discussion when we're throwing lots of different things at everybody. I thought it really needed its own attention tonight. So even though it's not complete, I did want to at least bring it to you and get whatever feedback at this point, knowing that we're still in a draft and that we're still working through some of the other pieces of this as well.
Any questions, Trevor?
A great piece of work, Scott. This is really excellent. Does the red mean, the red means it's going to be, or needs reconstruction, is that right?
Right. So that's a little more expensive. You know, the traditional mill and pave is a lot cheaper. When you have to do the reconstruction, you know, they have to rebuild the base. It's more material, it's more time, and the cost is obviously higher.
So getting very local, there's a paved portion that goes up to Atchison Hollow Road, which is decaying pretty rapidly. I didn't see it on the list. I do see it on the map, but I didn't see Atchison Hollow Road on the list of streets.
It was on the list.
Was it?
Yeah. It has it in 2 places, I think.
There's a lot of other streets. On
It
page-
had it in the, I don't remember where, but it's definitely in there.
Going through all the A's.
It can be a little bit difficult to try to track down some of the,
Yeah, there's different
where we stand in the
categories
current.
of things.
Yeah.
It was on reconstruct,
That's on
the
page,
number 1, the number 2, page 8 of 8,
page 8 of 8.
bottom of the hill.
Oh, yeah, good.
Sam Hill Road.
All right, good, so it's on the,
It's on the reconstruct.
good. My neighbors and I will be happy.
Well, that doesn't mean it's gonna get done anytime soon.
I know, but at least it's on the list. I can tell
It's
them.
like the state here.
Yeah, I think we all have to be, Sue brings up a really good point. On the list and when you're gonna get done.
Yeah.
Very different
I just tell it's like the state of New Hampshire.
I mean, unless we double our taxpayer
And again,
contribution,
that's
but
a
I don't think the
conversation.
taxpayers would like
No,
that.
that's-
Well, there you go.
Now the
That's always a
neighbors
conversation.
stop you on the road when you're out for a
Everybody
walk,
play the
like,
Powerball
Hey.
quick.
you're on the select board, what the hell's happened with this?
Yeah, and I guess the point to all that being is, right, you can certainly adjust up and down, right?
Right.
Depending upon other factors in the budget, but it's always, people always want more, that's for sure.
That's true.
And then it does make sense to do them in the same area.
Yeah.
It was
So,
long,
you
and
know, like-
not normally, it's nice to pay for it. when it comes down to the-
Yeah, to do that in conjunction with Westminster makes a lot of sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
It
well,
really
it makes sense.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so,
Is there more money in the pipeline after the federal increase in infrastructure funds? Has it come to Vermont yet? I know they've asked for it, but I
they've
haven't
asked, I
seen.
don't know.
Yeah.
And we're only forecasting that 2025 number based on prior years' awards. I'm hoping that they would increase that
I don't know.
based on some of that federal spending, but they haven't really committed to that spending. Yeah.
And Scott, if we have unallocated ARPA money, could we ever move that toward our infrastructure highways?
ARPA monies are unencumbered, so and we'll talk about that later on, we do have an item to talk about, where we do have some unidentified funds still in our base allocation of ARPA, so
I see
that's
that.
something the board could certainly look into.
Okay.
And then we also have to look at paving in conjunction with where the culverts have to go to make us more prepared for
1.1
future flooding events. So you don't want to spend a lot of money paving a road if you've got a big culvert.
We
expensive
sent
culvert
5 culvert locations into the state after the most recent round. They asked us, where do you have troubled areas, right? So we have one on Green Mountain Turnpike, we have a couple, I can't remember all of them, but there were 5 locations. Beach Road, we've already put in for money, we're waiting to still hear. It's been months and months, and every month I call them and get, no commitment as to when they're gonna potentially award money. But the other 5, we put on a list, a statewide list, to say, we know these need to be upsized, they're going to need attention. So we'll try to marry that to this process as well. So it makes no sense to pave a road and then come behind in a year or
Dig it
2
up.
years and dig it up. People look at it like,
Gotta do it right the first time.
Right, and
Yeah.
so, are they requiring box culverts now in some of these instead of,
Depends on the hydrology reports, just how much flow that you have to accommodate. A lot of them are fairly large though.
yeah,
Well, the flows are, I mean, even just this last storm, 3 days ago, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
We got a lot of rain in a little bit of time, and it was crazy.
Yeah.
And that wasn't predicted for us at all.
Okay, we ready to move along?
I've got a couple things.
Yeah, go ahead. So,
He brings up a very good point in here, that it's not advisable just to go after the worst places first.
Correct.
And this is something that I think that, if the public understood that, they would really understand a lot more about how these roads are chosen. Because people might say, well, why is this road getting paved when there's this other one over here that's in much worse condition?
right, like mine.
And there's, as he explains it here, there's a lot of thought that goes into that, because if you just go around going after the worst places first, that's not necessarily the best use of your money, and you're probably gonna dig yourself into a really big hole.
Yeah.
Because those places need oftentimes to be totally reconstructed.
Right.
And if you put all your money into reconstructing those spots,
You have nothing left to do anything else.
you leave all the other roads go to pieces, and so you let other roads that could have just had preventative maintenance go to slip beyond that point and need total reconstruction.
Exactly.
And you dig yourself deeper
Deeper
and
and
deeper and
deeper.
deeper.
Right. It's,
So
Yeah.
just
And we're-
going around to the worst spots and fixing those, you're just going to ruin yourself.
But you do have the point that people understood that it would make things, I mean, there's people that harp about, well, Rockingham, missing link road out there.
Yeah.
That was brought up at a joint board meeting
again,
by Wade and saying,
There's people I can count on every time I'll get a phone call. It's just consistent, and they're advocating, I understand it. It's part of, it's part of the job.
So
Are you
how-
calling him?
And it's, I mean, that's part of the reason we were where we were several years ago, is we went off of this plan that had been developed.
But I think the thing that helps, certainly, I refer to this consistently when I talk to people on the phone, and I'm like, we're not playing favorites, because, you always hear some of that, well, you paved this road because so whatever. I'm like, no, not really. We have this comprehensive plan, and you're more than welcome to look at it, and this is what we try to follow. And the board's been, consistent about trying to fund it. So I said, if you really want to advocate for more money, come to the town meeting and ask the board to spend more money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I tell people on the phone, not to be obnoxious, just to say, this is the process, this is how it works.
so do you and Andy sit down and decide, using all these factors, how do you decide which ones are gonna be worked on?
It just, the next couple of years line up just because of circumstances and potentially what we just talked about.
Yeah, you kind of really explained,
Right.
a lot of the thought behind those.
But then after that, looking at 26, 27, 28, 29, we'll look at regions and try to get as much consistency so they're not hopscotching around, because you get the best price when they can work in a pretty consistent area. So,
Yeah, like you did in Saxon River, with,
Right.
and you worked all those roads at the
did all
same
the
time.
streets at once.
Right.
Yeah, that was good.
and sometimes that annoys people because they don't, they think that, you should maybe do a little here and a little there, but that's probably the least cost-effective way to do it. I try to explain that to people, that contractor time, he's gonna charge you to pick up that machine and move it, and then come back and finish, and so, just not very cost-effective.
Right.
I also think that we should consider going forward whether some of these roads actually need to be paved. Because we have a lot of paved roads in Rockingham, it seems to me. There's lots of, these, class 3 roads that maybe have just a few houses on them, but it's paved, and some of them need full reconstruction. And is it a good use of funds to do a reconstruction
Right.
on some of these? Maybe if it's something that, it's still good, that just needs preventive maintenance, you go ahead, you do that, but when they get down to that point where it just needs a reconstruction, I don't know if it really makes sense.
Yeah, reclassification is a different process, and to be fair to this study, we only looked at it as to, if it's whatever paved now, we considered it paved for the future. We did not look at should we make these judgments about maybe maintaining it, like you said, at a lower level?
Yeah.
We can do that. That's a little different process, maybe not as, it might be interesting.
There's some history on why, for example, Ashton Hollow Road, before it was paved, we had a big storm, the whole road ended up at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
It's a very steep
There's certainly
hill.
spots.
Oh, yeah, and so that's why I think over the years, people have said it's smarter to have that chunk paved than like Bemis Hill Road in Westminster, big storm. Westminster West Road has basically all that material right in the road. They fix it, next storm.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
any
then
other?
sometimes maybe that could be solved too by, better ditching and better culverts and just better stormwater management, like we do for some of our other unpaved back roads.
Well,
Maybe that was some of the problem in the past, is it really that needs to be paved?
The other thing too is the choice of material. That makes a big difference. I know like Hartley Hill, it was all clay, and when Everett was here, he rebuilt the lower part, Rockingham, and boy, the minute you change that town line, you could tell the difference.
Oh, yeah, I remember, it's still that way.
And of course, there's a big controversy going on Facebook right now about Hartley Hill.
I know.
All in Westminster, thank God, but still.
That's right, not our problem.
No, it's not a problem, but it's interesting to see, right away issues, who owns what, how much of that road owns, unbelievable.
I think they gave that road away, it's crazy.
And I think the other thing I tell people when they do call and talk about paving, as I said, the other thing that we're responsible for as a town is our bridges, and bridges aren't free. They're expensive, and they're part of the town's responsibility. So, when we talk about tax rates and affordability and what can we afford to do and not do, it's a very complicated conversation. I try to let people know that the board takes it seriously. They hear people, they understand the concern, but also, try to understand the larger, more complex picture, because it's just not that simple. So.
I'm so glad you've done it. This will help me answer constituents' questions. I'm gonna hang
And
on.
absolutely share it with people. I do it constantly on the phone with folks, right? And I try to keep, it's not, I said, this is what we're trying to do, is inform you and how decisions are made, right? So hopefully it's good information for everybody.
It's great.
Okay, we all set to move along? Let's go to number 7, which is gravel pit operations update. There's a nice little map in your paper.
Just a little map, and they've been working on in the pit, so we've had a contractor out there with some of our guys, because we needed a larger dozer. We're starting to do the phase 4 closeout elevation, so we needed the larger machine to work in conjunction with our machine. Just about done with the preliminary work. The next piece of that will be, we'll have to do some hydro seeding, and hopefully get the hydro seeding done before the weather, knocks us out. So it'll come back and sit in the winter and come back in the spring, but then this section will be pretty much ready for closure. You did put money away for this, so there is funds available for this work. We're hoping that we come in, depending upon what the hydro seeding monies come in at, we might come in a little bit under budget. So as we get into the budget conversations, we'll talk about where we stand with this, and then hopefully, if some of that can be reprogrammed for other highway types of activities, we can certainly talk about that when we get into the budget. But there has been a lot of work up here. So I'm sure people have maybe commented or seen just the activity, so I wanted the board to be aware of what they've been doing, and I'm sure Sue gets calls. As well as to make sure that they understand that the other pieces of this, which we don't own, are privately owned, and there is gravel mining operations going on the Hanson property, and potentially on the state of Vermont, the old state police barracks property at some point. We're going to talk a little bit about that later, but the point being, I know sometimes people in the neighborhood, hear a lot of the heavy equipment and machinery and wonder what's going on. Ours is very concentrated to the closeout here. The folks that are doing the install on the solar array have started, so we did receive their payment, so we did get our initial $50,000 payment. And you'll start to see some activity with mostly Green Mountain in the beginning, running the power lines to get the transmission lines in, and then they'll start working on the grounds themselves to set up the arrays. As well as again, there's a more active, Buck Adams has a pit that he's been working on the Hanson property, so that's been quite a bit of the activity. You've probably seen or heard up there. He's been pretty busy up there working on that, so.
And he has the same Act 250 requirements that we do, right? Private pit owners?
Well, his is a little different than ours because of the size of the location. We have a higher level of reporting required because we have a larger amount of acreage. His parcel, at least on the Hanson piece, is less than 3 acres. So there's a lower level of reporting. You still have to do Act 250 and some other basic requirements, but it's not nearly the same as we're doing on ours because we have a larger parcel.
Now, is he storing any of that, his material in the pit?
Yes. And we're going to talk about that later on tonight, too.
Yeah, we can have executive
Yeah.
session. to talk about that.
Yes.
Okay.
I have another suggestion related to this.
Mhm.
We were talking about all the gravel that was pushed up in the river by the railroad. So we feel that could potentially create an environmental issue in the future of continued flooding. I think that it would be worthwhile to investigate if we could extract that gravel. Because if it needs to go away, if something needs to be done about that, we don't know that the railroad is going to step up to clean up that mess.
Yeah, but you'd still have to get the railroads right away to do that, because it's on their property and they own, their right of way is across the whole river in that section
Okay.
where it's sitting.
Yeah.
And
And
access it is road, even though it's someone lives there.
You have to
it's-
have a construction easement to get to it.
Yeah.
You have to have a permit, take it away.
But I think it would be a great idea, I mean, because it really should go away.
Yeah.
And it's also valuable material, I mean, it
Well,
is,
exactly. It might be a way that we can kind of solve 2 issues at once. It might take a little bit of work, but maybe it's some pretty valuable material that would be worth, pursuing that. And it would also take care of our issue with the degradation of the river and potential flooding issues.
How would that be negotiated with the railroad? Is there
Good question. There's no negotiation.
A law-
Scott doesn't
a
have
loss-
enough on his
a
plate.
lawsuit, maybe?
Probably, I was gonna say, probably not well, but we can try.
So
I think they might be willing in that case, because I think,
we're solving a problem for them.
Especially-
and I think A&R is aware of it, so maybe they might be a little more relaxed in approaching it as opposed to other times when they've been a little more stringent. So I think it's a good opportunity. We'll reach out and see if we can at least have a conversation.
I mean, the gravel's already out of the river stream, it's just sitting
Yes,
there on
yes.
their bank, so.
They've sort
it
of
would-
put it in nice piles, actually.
Yes,
Yeah,
so it would be removing it and getting access
right.
through their right of way, plus the neighbor's right of way, so I'm not sure where the boundary line is there, what's their right of way and what's not, but.
Yeah, that I'm not sure. We'd have to look at that.
Um,
So it's
I
like
think
a lot
it's-
to look at, but
Because of the history of that location, most of that railroad has the right of way through that neighbor's property, because that's where the railroad station used to be. For about a year until the flood changed the course of the river, and so it
Went
had to move.
Okay, let's move on to the Aqua project update. There is a listing in your packet.
So I just wanted to bring a couple of items for update to the board's attention because some of these have been ongoing. So all of the phase 1 work on the town roof project has all been completed, so that is done. The meeting house, we are working on finalizing a contract for the design phase of the phase 1 improvements, with the idea that we would go out and have bids ready for December of this year so that we would lock in what our pricing would be, so that would help us to potentially understand what our phase 2 project costs might be, as well as if there's any additional problems if we don't meet all the potential work that we need to do for phase 1. So there is some work being done here to try to meet some targets for that meeting house match, which remember goes against the Save America's Treasures grant, which is a 50% match grant. So that's the large portion of the first round of funding, was that $380,000 from the Save America's Treasures. On the train station, God bless Gary, because he's been juggling multiple railroad balls to try to figure out, everybody's got we do V-Trans, we do Genesee, Wyoming Rail, New England Central, Vermont Rail System. Everybody has a say in this railroad project. It's insane. But he's done a good job of trying to get them all in the mix, get everybody's comments, everybody's inputs. We're working on the final pieces of the draft lease, and there was this afternoon, there was a couple things going back and forth, so I'm hopeful to have that at least presented to the board so that we might be able to take action on it. If not November, definitely by December, so that we could then close on that $100,000 piece, which is the ARPA piece towards the purchase. And then that kicks off all sorts of other grant funds that are there for renovation work and other rehabilitation work. So it's been a long process, but I think we're close to getting that piece back to you so that we can then move this thing to that to that first phase anyway, to close that out. The last note on there, and just as we had talked earlier, of our initial $440,000, we still have $60,000 that we have not allocated towards any particular project. So one of the priorities of this budget season, and something I would think the board would want to consider and maybe have a conversation, is how do we want to potentially allocate that money? Because we do have to spend it by the end of '24. So there's lots of different, I'm sure you can all come up with a host of ways that we could spend $60,000. I'm sure it wouldn't take much.
By the end of '24, you mean October 25, a US date?
It's December. It'll be
So
over
this
that.
is the calendar year, not the government fiscal.
There's been no talk about extending it, and who knows what the politics are going to be on the federal level by the time we get to that point. They might extend it, but I wouldn't count on it. So I think we should anticipate coming up with a use that we would know, and we would feel comfortable that we would spend that money by the end of that December of '24.
What about the lighting control box that we need to repair before all the lights go out?
We have had that, it's been on order, Peter, for almost 4 months now. And Andy calls the contractor and he keeps telling us it should be here, anything, and here we are 4 months later. So we've been pushing him because I'm concerned about it, like you said. If it fails, we're not gonna have any lights downtown and it's gonna be darkest. You can hear the thing humming.
You can hear it humming outside.
If you sit out there in the alley, you can hear it hum. It's not good.
It's pretty, one of the days we'll cover.
Did it stop humming?
It stopped humming.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Lights are still on?
We need to go and hit it with a hammer
Yeah.
to reset it.
It's definitely out of class legs.
I didn't know maybe we could allocate some of the funds to that way you don't have to put in the budget.
Yeah, we had already we had encumbered that. We've done the purchase, we're just waiting for the material. It's about 10,000. So,
And also, if that 60K could be considered for paving, sidewalks, et cetera, that might be it's about infrastructure. And
all would be eligible.
how and when do we need to make this decision?
You definitely would have to make it before we do our warning for January. So through the budget, we'll talk about this as we put November, we'll have a budget calendar together, we'll look at it, and then we'll definitely have to have our warning done by January so it can be published and then be ready for town meeting.
Scott, one other question on the train station. I understood from Gary that the original plan to reconstruct those beautiful platforms with the roof on them has been held up by the railroad.
It's been not only held up, it's been rejected. They claim that it's a sight distance problem, that they cannot operate the train safely. We offered them all sorts of different solutions as to how we could do it, different levels, different sizes, and they just flat out said no. So we said, okay, because we couldn't get past that point. And so we had to just simply say, okay, we won't put the canopy roofs back on the outside. Can we move forward with the lease? And that was what broke the log jam on the lease.
It's a real loss to the project.
Railroads don't care. Railroads
too
carry,
bad when, it's like, that's like the ideal way to have a passenger platform, is to have a canopy over it.
Yes.
And that's what is generally expected in most locations where you have a decent railroad station.
Did they do that when we did the Bravo one over? Did they have a canopy down there
I
now?
think they do, they will.
They're doing it.
No,
So I mean, if they got away with it, how the heck?
no, I don't think they do.
well, the problem is if you look
The
at,
site distance may be different.
we are at the diamond right there, so as you pass the station, as you're looking towards the bridge, there's a signal right there, and that's the signal that they're replacing. And even with that, like I said, they would not tell us exactly where they're gonna put the new signal, but they claim no matter where they put it, it was still a site distance issue, which I don't understand. We couldn't get past that point of contention on the operations side.
So where will the money that was gonna be used on those platform roofs, where's that gonna go?
Into facade improvements, I mean, the building itself will suck up a tremendous amount of money. So, but it's just unfortunate because it would have been a nice enhancement and brought it back to a look that would have been historically consistent, so it's a little disappointing.
And will passengers waiting for a train, will the building be open or will they stand out in the rain?
They'll stand inside in the waiting area, but as they get to the platform, they'll be exposed to whatever the elements
Right.
are.
Okay.
All right, let's go to award the bids for propane and heating oil. There's a memo and information in your packet. Proposal. Anyone has any questions? Now's the time to speak up. Interesting, you sent out nine firm, up to nine firms, and you only get 2 questions, 2 answers back.
Nobody wants to commit this far.
That's the problem, nobody wanted to commit to,
No,
Especially with a,
we called and tried to
I
cajole.
mean, and we need to take action now with this war that's broken out.
Yeah, we should,
Right.
we should
Got it.
have this price.
We've got to nail it.
I mean, the only other option, like you can do it is by delivery, but that price is gonna be so
Okay.
volatile right now. I don't know if it's worth.
No,
it, so.
we need to be certain, even if we lose out in the end.
Right.
We need to be certain.
So those were the 2 best cost proposals. For propane was Dead River, and for heating oil was Coda and Coda.
so we need a motion to, point up to give the bid for propane to Dead River Company at $1.36 per gallon, and heating oil to Coda and Coda at $3.42 a gallon.
So move.
And I'll second it.
You guys aren't making a motion, how come I'm making them all?
Because you
You're good
just
at
did,
it.
why repeat it?
You're good at it, Peter.
We're going,
I gotta
time,
stop.
it'll take me a
I'm just
minute
gonna
to do
stop
that.
it, we need a motion, that's it.
There you go.
All right, motion been made and seconded to award the propane bid to Dead River Company at $1.36 per gallon, and the heating oil bid to Coda and Coda at $3.42 per gallon. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor would say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, we're now at the fun stuff, financials. I hope everyone's had a chance to peruse them.
I had Alyssa on earlier, but she was having some computer issues and she lost her microphone, so she texted me. I don't think she was able to get back on, so.
I went through this, I didn't see anything that really stuck out like a sore thumb. There's a few that are a little bit expensive. I thought in the highway, there was one truck that was a 2023, I think it was, we spent a lot of money on. But I'm not sure if it was part of a purchase of some equipment that went on the truck. Could have been. To look at it for myself.
123.
Yeah, 2023
Oh,
versus
$3,000?
$3,000 stuck out there, but that could be tires soon, but I can't believe the tire's gone.
No.
I mean, not even 2 years. So,
I can check it out.
and when you look at 2019, that's 4 years old, and we spent the same amount of money pretty much.
Well, sometimes they put the chains in there. How much are chains?
Chains on anything is, are probably about $600 for a set of chains.
Okay, so,
So unless they bought 5 sets for that one truck.
I know we've been working with some of the salters and sanders, so it might have been some of that.
That's what I say, it may have been a
Right.
purchase, I didn't get a chance.
Some of the
to-
winterization expenses are starting to show up now, the pre-season stuff.
Yeah.
well,
Maybe
so
they-
far so good.
And Scott, we're spending money on computer maintenance hardware. And anyone who tries to have a meeting in town hall, the Wi-Fi bags out almost every time. Can we lean on these people? What's the, is it the routers that need to be replaced, or what is it? Because
So what happens is we lose signal. So we have, in various locations, we have these boosters that help boost the signal.
Yep.
So we have the materials to be the booster, but when they went in to install it, they needed to run some additional cabling. So when he comes back this next time, he's gonna run the cables, and then the booster will be working in that back meeting room. Because we do drop, if you're on in a, I know it, because I've been on calls in there, Zoom calls, and it just drops.
it's just gone.
And so he's here next week, so that should fix that problem.
We have sufficient bandwidth.
We have enough capacity coming in the building that we could do lots of Zoom, but the problem is just the signal strength through this building doesn't travel well. So, but that should be fixed for the next, hopefully the next time.
Yeah, it dropped 5 times out of the last week. We just finally.
Well, I do that, I play that game every day, because where I sit, it does that multiple times a day.
Oh.
So I just sit there and have to refresh and then reconnect and wait for the, So I'm as anxious as you are to get that one resolved.
Any other questions on the financials?
No, but it looked like Priscilla's doing really well. What's been those blockbuster hits this summer? Barbie and everyone else.
Things are looking up in that department.
They are.
Well, I tell you, they have been doing a lot more live programming.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
Programming is
you know.
huge.
and the live
Yeah.
programming is a
Carry
much
them.
better return compared to, you don't share as much of the gate as you do with
Right.
these big
Yeah.
blockbusters.
Yep.
So you're seeing a better return, so I'm encouraged that that's moving in a good direction.
Yeah.
So kudos to Charlie and Red.
Red's been great.
Red,
Great to
that's
work with.
worked out really well.
Yeah, it's been great partnership.
Okay, we're all set. Let's go to review and approve orders, bills, and warrants. Take a motion.
I move that we approve orders, bills, and warrants.
Thank you.
Full phrasing there.
I second
Do you have a second?
that
Yes.
review.
Okay, motion made to approve orders, bills, and warrants. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries, and they're coming around. I've already signed them, so.
And are we open for other business now or
Not
not?
yet.
Not yet, we're getting there.
Okay.
Agenda items for November 7th, 2023 meeting. We'll probably do a little budget discussion then, I'm gonna guess.
We're gonna start, we've got 2 people that have requested to make presentations. The cemetery committee wants to make a presentation. Just do one time through. But yeah, we have 2 specifically requested to be presenting at that meeting. And I've asked the river keeper to come and talk about the Berkeley licensing at the
Right,
21st.
right, to the river committee.
So they'll be coming, hopefully I'm waiting for them to confirm to come on the 21st.
That'd be great, because there's this 80-acre hayfield in the Upper Meadows, and it's a prime bird habitat. And we have to make sure they hay that field to where they kill all the meadowlarks and the bobolink chicks. And those are threatened species, so we really want, for the town, we want that to be in the agreement.
Good, that kind of got there.
Good.
That was one that we needed. That's the answer.
And yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we got a few, so there's a couple of weeks after before we have to settle that agenda. Now, other business. Sue, you got any?
No, just a question, the stained glass sold, right? So that's no longer an
So
issue?
SVG, which had owned it, right, did have a meeting, and at the meeting, they did have some sort of an auction, and it was understanding, so
Okay, so we don't have that email hanging over our head anymore.
our friend, yes, I'm sure the board, yes, has all received that threatening email about,
Right, about church-state separation.
so we are no
We're in the
longer
clear for when we
hopefully-
settle.
Good.
Yes.
Well, do you have anything? Okay, now you do it.
Okay, I just,
Sorry. Yeah, just use your phone.
no, I'm glad, thank you, Peter. The hybrid licensing, I'm glad that's on the agenda. because
They sent us a letter.
Yeah, I saw that, good.
Yep.
So that Kathy Erfer will come
Right.
and meet with us.
Yes.
All right, good.
How's that?
Yep.
Okay. A couple things. I saw your email requesting an MSA be put on the social services listing.
Right.
Unfortunately, you can't go there because you're not a social service agency.
But you know what, the board chair says that we do classes for the elderly, and we do classes for children, and so there's a lot of social service.
There's state statute.
They,
What you would have to end up doing is probably go into the budget. Fact TV also is coming forward, looking for an increase. They're already in the budget on professional services. They're looking for $5,000. You are going to get if you haven't already got a form to fill out, a questionnaire thing.
right,
So what we can do is we'll put you in, I don't know, there's another section that says fees and reimbursements. There's 3 or 4 items there that could go into the budget.
right. So so the process is beginning, you're chairing that committee, right?
No,
Who
no,
is?
I got off that, so there's just Deb Wright, John Wright, and Catano putting down or doing the thing, and you'll get a report and their recommendations when they get through the interviews.
Good, so they'll meet with.
Oh, yeah.
All right, that's it.
So then what we do is when we go to the budget,
Yep.
we'll have your information here and hopefully the rest of them, and we'll see what they come up with, and then what's probably gonna be will probably be on the agenda as a town warning as an item.
All right, and Susan still,
It's your first year anyway, so.
yeah,
Yeah, and you have to
Yeah.
petition, right?
Yeah.
right, and board chair Susan Still will be making that
Whatever,
presentation.
I mean. But I just want to let you know that, because I kind of looked at that, and then Debbie had a question, and I says, well, yeah, whatever.
Does the
So-
board have to appoint Gaetano? Because we appointed Devin.
What's that?
I think we appoint all 3 of them
But we didn't.
Yeah, we
appoint
appointed him, and
Gaetano?
then-
Oh, we did appoint Gaetano?
Yeah, we pointed it
Okay,
out. There was some question whether he was gonna get on it or not, because he wasn't hesitant, and then I had Doug McPhee as backup in case he failed on me, so Doug offered to take over and fill in, but then Gaetano filled in, and so.
Should we
No, so we
appoint-
did approve all 3. I remember this, because I don't remember.
Yeah, they were approved, and then the story ended up, Gaetano didn't know if he wanted to be on there or not, and I guess Debbie pushed his time, told him to stay on there or something, I don't know, but anyway.
Do we need to appoint an alternate, like, could we appoint Doug
No.
McPhee as an alternate?
No, because they're about halfway through the
Yeah.
interview
Yeah.
right
Oh,
now.
good, all right.
So they've been doing all right. There are minutes on the website.
Oh, are they?
Oh.
Go down through of their interviews, they're not saying what they're doing, but they only deliver the session, and they make their recommendations at that point, then they're gonna get a report, we'll get a report as
All
to
right.
what they're gonna go. But you can read the discussion, some of the discussion goes on.
Good, I'll look at that.
Debbie said, it's kind of interesting.
I'd like to say,
They're learning as well as, what's going on with these things, so anyway.
that's good, thanks.
Let's see, what else have I got here? Okay, that's under there, so, okay, that's all I have. We will have an executive session tonight. There will probably be a decision or 2 made, and I guess Scott will have to get you the results of that for the minutes. So,
Thank you.
that being said, we need a motion to go into executive session, and let me get my language, oh, there you go, you don't want that language. It's gonna be number 8, you need to do this one first, and then that one, that'll be the excuse on that, labor relations.
Okay, so the first motion, I move to find that premature general public knowledge of labor relations agreements with employees will clearly place the municipality at a substantial disadvantage by by labor relations and employee agreements. Okay, that's the first one.
We need a second.
Second.
All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And you hear your second.
I move the board enter executive session to discuss the labor relations and rights of employees under provision of Title I, Section 31PA1 of the Vermont statutes.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
We are in executive session. So we got the door closed. Do you need the?
Record.